Okay. So today we're here with Nicholas David Ngan, and I saw your story on Gaia TV, and Elisa Herrera had you on, which was very interesting. Um, Nicholas is an experiencer of being a walk-in, which is an incredibly interesting topic. And he also wrote a book, which is Your Soul Contract Decoded. So I'm going to show here. I will put a link in the description, all his links, by the way, also from his interviews for those that are interested. Um, so when I saw your interviews, well, welcome, first of all. And
thanks for having me, Patricia.
And when I saw your interview, I was so blown away because everything you talked about was for me recognizable. And for a long time, I thought I was a walk-in, only to figure out I am not, most probably, at least for what I've learned by now. But every other thing that you were talking about, the feelings, the way that you coped and that you figured that out for yourself. I mean, everything was so recognizable that I figured I need to speak to this man. And here we are. So would you tell the audience a bit about yourself and your experiences?
Well, I was born in New Zealand, and I always felt really different when I was a child. I always felt there was something special I was here to do, and that this wasn't my real family. I used to spend a lot of time gazing at the stars, looking for home, because I knew Earth wasn't home either. And I'd been like that from a very young age, from the time I could remember. And I wondered who these people were in my family. I feel I'm a bit adopted here. I don't fit in with these people. And so I always had a normal, I was sort of a normal upbringing in New Zealand. And my spiritual awakening happened in my late teens. And then I went traveling. I left New Zealand in my mid-20s because I wanted to see the world, because New Zealand's so far away from anywhere. And we used to hear so much about all sorts of other parts of the world. And I went to Southeast Asia for a couple of years. And I spent a lot of time in third world countries seeing how the majority of people live, and got exposed to Buddhism in Thailand and in Tibet, and got a different view on life altogether. And this was a great exploration from a very protected life in a first world country.
Wow, that's actually, you did all that very early because you had that spiritual awakening, which I'm pretty jealous about because I never had that. I just struggled through. So you kind of had at that moment like the time to explore really what's going on.
Yeah, I was in search for myself, for the real purpose of life, because school and university and work hadn't really answered my question, which was, well, there's got to be something very important for me to do here, and none of these things are answering it. So I was restless. I knew my soul was driving me to explore the world, to find that purpose. It was very strong. And then in Japan, where I was teaching English for a couple of years, I made a friend there, an American friend, and she told me about Frank Alpa, who's one of my primary spiritual teachers, about this course called the Carousel of Growth that he was running in Arizona, and she gave me the brochure for it. And this is in the late 80s, and I had that brochure in my backpack for about a year. And in the beginning of 1990, I got to that workshop in Arizona, Phoenix. I'd never been to America. So I walked into this conference room, and there were 30 other people there, and they all seemed very familiar. And I felt, I'm home.
Wow.
Maybe I'll get some answers here. And during that training, that spiritual training, he talked about walk-ins and all sorts of other wonderful ways to arrive in a body here on Earth, to bring in higher consciousness. And he talked about it, and I felt, he's talking about me. And that's when I realized I actually had a walk-in, a change of soul. to bring a higher frequency soul into a body, which couldn't have incarnated in my mother at the time of conception because she would have miscarried. And so I talked to him about it, and he tuned in and found the actual date, which was, what was it? It was in August 72, I think it was. Can't remember the exact date, beginning of August. And so I did the astrology on that, and it all explained a lot of things in my life to find out. I found a walk-in astrologer called Sarah Funk. She has a website called plutorising.com. And she actually developed the whole concept of walk-in astrology charts, where you look at the natal chart of the body when you're actually born, physically born, and you look at the walk-in chart of the time you actually incarnated. There was a change of soul, because the change of soul happens at a very specific time to get the right astrological configuration. So
But
you have two charts basically you work with.
But then that means you need to know the exact date and time of.
Yeah, he tuned into what it was, and
okay.
It turned out to be correct, because it explained a lot of stuff that had been going on that in my natal astrology chart didn't explain. And if you take the midpoints between the planets on the walk-in chart and then in the body's natal chart, that explains the relationship between the walk-in soul and the first soul which left.
So did you die for that, or I don't know, it like does a walks in when you.
What happens is that at a very specific time and location, to ensure the walk-in soul gets the right astrological configuration, the first soul basically undocks from the body. It pulls its life force from all the cells to the center column, and then it leaves out the pranic tube, which is the same process as when our physical body dies.
Right.
But then immediately, instantly, at the same time, the new soul came in, down the center column into pranic tube, and sends energy out to all the cells and connects to the body. So it happens in a millionth of a second, because the body needs a soul to make sure it functions. It'll die. You need the life force, the divine intelligence. So it happens instantly. And so he found the time when that happened. I don't have a conscious memory of it because I was only 11 at the time. But I do remember feeling quite different, more powerful after it. And I was the first soul was relatively quiet, a quiet being, wasn't very assertive, but the second one was much more powerful. And I found myself, I do remember shouting at my father because he was, maybe I thought he was less conscious or he was doing something I didn't like. So I found that extra power came out of me and more drive. But I didn't know, obviously at that stage, I didn't know I was a walk-in. I didn't find out till I was 30 when I went to this workshop with Frank Upper that I'd had a walk-in. So mine is what's called an unconscious walk-in.
Right. So, but then did your parents notice that change in you? Because clearly that age specifically is when you go into puberty. So we tend to already change quite a bit all of a sudden. But, being
well, I didn't know I had a walk-in, obviously, so I couldn't ask them. So I never actually asked them that. But I definitely noticed the change.
Yeah.
Much more driven and focused and wanting to get on with things, much stronger drive.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was quite a discovery, but it explained a lot of stuff that didn't make any sense up to that point as I got more conscious on my path of growth.
And so what were the symptoms for you? Because that for me was very impressive when you spoke about how you felt so differently, obviously because you were unconscious about it. And so, maybe people can relate to that just like I did.
I think there's a sense of deeper purpose and wanting to find it and actualize it. Very strong drive to do that, because walk-in souls are more conscious, more evolved, more powerful than the first souls. But then it's not an easy way to arrive on Earth, because a walk-in soul has a contract with the first soul to clear all the karma of the first soul out of the body, before it can claim the body and build upon the personality that's been constructed by the first soul. So basically the deal is the first soul doesn't take any of the learning from the lifetime, which it normally does. It leaves it in the body, but it has its karma cleared that was set up for it, that it's set up. And then once enough of that's cleared, the second soul, the walking soul, can then build upon the positive elements of that life, that personality, and get on with the mission.
But what about the lost? Because I remember having like being literally lost, like literally saying to myself, what am I doing here? Like you said, because you
When
say
did
you know
when
your
did you,
purpose.
when I didn't at that stage at all, I felt completely lost.
Oh, okay.
I had no idea what life was about, what I was meant to be doing at all. And it wasn't until I got to that carousel of growth workshop when I was 30 in Arizona that I started to get an idea. I had a soul contract reading from Franklin at that time, and that's what the book is about. And that basically showed I was here to be a spiritual teacher and to empower people. And once he explained all that to me, I've spent the next 30 odd years since then making that happen, which it has. But I needed that conscious transmission from him of the soul contract reading, which really resonated strongly. He put all the disparate pieces of my life in place. It got me focused as a walking soul to get on with it.
Wow.
So I think most light workers feel lost because it's a pretty strange place down here, and learning how it works is very tricky. And often walking souls, we don't incarnate that often on a specific planet. We come for specific missions. I mean, we're at the end of a game of separation on Earth where, as everyone can see out in the world, massive change is happening. And we come down at those times, incarnate to bring higher consciousness and knowledge and teaching and transmissions to help awaken the 98% of the population who deliberately went to sleep. They felt separate from God, so they could help them wake up. It's our job. That's why we turn up. But you have to learn how it works here first, and that's the part where you feel lost. Have no idea how this works for this species. It's like, and that's what we spend our early lives doing, working out how does it work so that we can relate to people.
Well, because for me, it was like I couldn't remember the first 7 years of my life. So it's like almost like at 7 years old, boom, I'm here on Earth. And so being a quantum hypnosis therapist now, I've done sessions myself. And then I discovered that I literally went out of my body. So I only inhabited the body for, what was it? About 3%. And so the rest was just not here. But my body could survive that way. I just couldn't cope. And apparently I did go out of my body. And so this is why I cannot remember anything before I was 7 years old. There's just little pieces I do remember. But when I literally have to ask my mom, like, what was I like? When I look at pictures of myself, I do not recognize myself. I don't see me. I don't, literally, it's like looking at a stranger. That's probably not the same as a walk-in, but it does feel like it.
No, that's very much walking, because what happens is that the mental and emotional bodies and the spiritual body, the soul, all leave when you have a change of soul. And so the memories, you can have complete memory loss from the time prior to the walking because it's left. Okay, and a new mental and emotional body and spiritual body, the soul, enters from the walk-in, which is why a lot of walk-ins have no memory of the time before the walk-in, or very little. That's the reason. So that's a very typical symptom of a walk-in. And if you look different, it's because when the new walk-in soul comes in, it starts to change the physical body's appearance. It starts to work on the DNA. Some walk-ins grow. I've known Almira, who used to run the Center for Conscious Ascension with me. She was conscious walking. She grew 1.5 inches in the time after she had her walking, and her whole body shape changed. So I'd say you look different because walking has molded you in its image in the typical way it looks. Okay, and that'll be different to the first soul. That's why you don't recognize the first one, because you're looking at the body of the first soul, and you would have changed it quite a lot.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's what
that's
actually
so,
happens, because they can totally manipulate the DNA. I've not had walk-ins who change the color of their eyes, go from blue to green, stuff like that can happen. So
I actually did have that happen because I used to have darker green eyes, and
well,
I
this is
have.
what this is why the walk-in's going to change it, because it prefers to have a different color. Because the
Ah,
DNA is very malleable, much more than science says. So literally, it's playing with your DNA and reprogramming you.
but the thing is that because when I look at those pictures where I was a child, I mean, my mom also said you look always like a deer in the headlights, and so I instantly had an intense anxiety, and I've always had it since. That only developed then in extreme panic attacks, to then having agoraphobia, to then isolate completely from the world. And I never got to that point where I could figure out what was going on until I started really working on myself. And it's actually a year ago now that I discovered also I'm completely on the spectrum of autism, which when I read about it, it was like, oh my God, that explains everything. Like how I can't read sarcasm often. Jokes go over my head because I just take it literally. So there's so many aspects that I learned that is also from the walk-in that's is very similar to autism. And I don't know whether they just go hand in hand or they two separate things.
Well, we looked at your soul contract chart, and in your chart you have what I call nines, which is about having a great deal of disempowerment in the personality. Okay,
A
and
what? Sorry.
disempowerment.
Oh, right.
Okay, so and that will attract disempowering experiences. Okay, and that trauma, which affects the central nervous system in the brain, can potentially lead to things like being on the autistic spectrum. Okay,
Right.
potentially, but of course that can be a genetic thing as well, coming down the line. It can also be from depends what sort of vaccinations you had when you were a kid, that can affect you as well. Okay.
Yeah, I just happened to watch something this week, and somebody that works with autism for many, many years, and she discovered there are three types, and then there's those from vaccines, there's those that have genetic, and those that um, there was another part, but I can't remember exactly. And it was really interesting. But those from vaccines usually. Um, they don't they not only stop developing, they how do you say that, regress.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all of a sudden their speech stops and all that. As far as I know, I haven't had that at all, but yeah.
So when a high frequency soul comes into the body, all the low frequency emotional separation programs will come up, much more so than when you have a lower frequency first soul, which is probably why the anxieties and stuff came out, because it was in the cells. But when you came in at a soul level, you just pressed on everything, because the high frequency, when as it comes in, it means the low frequency stuff can't stay there. It has to either rise in frequency or leave. And because it can't rise in frequency, it comes out into your consciousness, into your emotional body, into your field, and you feel it all. So
Is it
basically,
also like, because that's very much what I felt like, my body is not mine.
well, it's like I call it nurse suit. Okay, it's the vehicle for you to actually interact with the reality. But as a walk-in, your job is to clear the physical body, raise its frequency by clearing all the stuff out that you've been feeling. Because until you do that, the mission can't happen, because there's a limited amount of the walk-in can come in because it's such high frequency. But as you clear the body, more what we call soul components gradually embody, more and more comes in. And then once you hit a threshold of what we call soul integration, where enough of the separation has been cleared. So doing emotional healing work is really critical for walk-in, to clean all the low frequency programs out of the body and all the issues that come up in the personality. And enough is cleared out, you hit the threshold of what we call soul integration, and then the soul, the walking soul, is in charge. So the power of the embodied part of the soul and the transmission of the spirit part of you outside the body is more powerful than the ego. When that happens, then the mission starts to happen. But you've got to get to the point of soul integration. So addressing all these emotional issues from the first soul is key to the mission here. And then the walk-in's mission is more fully revealed once you've got enough clarity in the ego, once enough of it is surrendered. Because most walk-ins go in not clear on the mission like I did, simply because I had to clear what was in the body first. Because the mission is not going to be revealed to you till you're emotionally integrated enough souls in the body to cope with it. Because if it was revealed too early, we'd probably run away, then the mission would fail. So you only get fed what you need to hear when you're ready to do something with it.
Yeah, I started 10 years ago. All of a sudden, I had to go to rehab because there was addictions and there was all sorts of things mentally, medications, all that. And so from there, I went completely holistic, and slowly I built myself back up to where I'm now. But I'm like, okay, did it really need to take that long? Because now I'm almost 53, and I'm like, really? I mean,
Well, the
yeah,
amount of time it takes depends on your ability to clear the programs. Some walk-ins can be in the body 30 years and be just like they were when they arrived because they hadn't done any emotional work on it. So it's not a natural progression. You actually have to do conscious emotional work and consciousness to all the programs coming up, find the right tools. We use a thing called divine healing, which Almira developed at the Center for Conscious Ascension, and to clear the programs as they come out layer by layer. Okay, and it's the willingness and desire to actually clear them which determines whether you actually integrate into the body enough to get the mission going. I've met a lot of walk-ins, because I've dealt with hundreds of them, who've never fully integrated, therefore the mission actually failed, and they turn up on our doorstep to get some help. And if they engage and do their emotional work, which raises the frequency of the body, which brings in the walk-in soul, okay, then there's a chance the mission might happen. But a lot of walk-ins never actually get that far.
yeah, I mean, I have struggled like big time, and over the past years, I mean, I cleared a lot, but there's still this barrier. Somehow there's this barrier. Very much a problem grounding, very big.
Yeah, well, it's because the high frequency soul can't come in and ground if there's still the low frequency programs in the body. It's why clearing, the more you clear the body, the more you can ground in the body.
Right.
You're trying to bridge heaven and earth, basically. So the main focus needs to be on clearing whatever's coming up in the body emotionally, and keep at it regularly. That's the key. There aren't any shortcuts with it.
That is like shortcuts do not exist. I have learned that the hard way. But it's interesting that you said that a walk-in can happen without dying. So it can
there isn't a physical death, because if the body died, then there'd be no vehicle to actually come into.
Of course, but
it's immediate transplant, basically. It's instantaneous soul change. So there isn't actually a physical dying.
No, but some people have this near-death experience, and then that's how.
Oh yeah, well, so okay, in that aspect, the soul will often, the first soul will often initiate a shock, like a near-death experience, an accident, operation, childbirth that happens, could be a car accident, to shock the body, which means that at the moment of shock, it'll be designed for a specific time and location, it's easier for the walking soul to leave, the first soul to leave, and for the walking soul to come in when someone's in shock. Okay, so that often happens primarily for that reason.
Well, what if that doesn't happen? Because I never had any accident whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, it can happen. It can happen just when you could just be doing your everyday thing. You could be asleep. It can happen at any time.
Right.
It doesn't have to be a near-death experience or a shock. That's often the typical way it happens. It just depends on the situation. Like Mary had a conscious walk-in, and she walked in on my healing table when we were doing light body integration, which is to remove the programs, beings, and structures which create the illusion we're separate from God. And then my guidance team, medical team, they said it. I was like, 4:53 p.m. is going to be a walk-in. They told me about half an hour before. You need to tell her. Okay, so we did, and at that moment, I saw the first soul leave out the crown chakra. Second soul came in. They were sort of met side by side, and then the first soul left, and the other one went in the body, and a different person got off the table when we finished. So
Wow.
you can have a conscious walk-in, no shock. It was designed to happen at that time. Unfortunately, I understood what was going on because I've been trained in it, in the light body integration work. I was trained
So
by.
is this per soul contract how somebody comes in as a soul?
Say that again.
So is this per a soul contract that somebody in what kind of way the walk-in comes in?
Oh yeah, the two souls have an agreement that this will happen at a specific time and place. It's usually a pre-incarnational agreement. So the first soul, my case, look, I'll grow the body to you about 11 years and 11 years and 11 months. In a few days, we'll grow you. At a specific time, I will be here at a certain location, and we'll do the swap. Because they figured this out beforehand, and then it happens. Okay.
Wow.
So it's all arranged. Like my soul and our mirror soul would agree this would happen, and I will be trained in how to integrate her. And so it happened that way. So it's all pre-planned. There are no accidents when this happens.
Yeah. So then where does the old soul goes?
It goes back to the astral plane. It goes for healing and recuperation because it's very intense being in a body. And then it will have a break for a few years, and then it will probably incarnate somewhere else in some other body. Okay, and then the walking soul can get on with the mission because it's actually a big queue upstairs to get into bodies here, and so.
So then what's the reason it doesn't come in? Oh, right, you said that
Because the frequency difference between the mother and the walking soul is too great, and she would immediately miscarry, which is why walk-ins, you have the whole walk-in process, because there aren't enough high frequency mothers vehicles around for high frequency souls to come in, unless the mother is very high frequency or walking herself or something like that. She wouldn't be able to carry a walk-in soul. It's not, the frequency difference is too great.
Wow. So, well, but here's an interesting thing. So I learned that I was constantly being visited by reptilians.
Yeah.
And so I would leave my body constantly, go out.
Yeah.
So, and that would save me. I learned this through the quantum hypnosis, and I learned more and more about it. And then I got this alien contact, and he confirmed this with me that was the case. In fact, I went to them constantly begging to get me out of here. And so those were before the 7 years. And then all of a sudden, well, my real conscious memory is like I'm literally being dropped here and I'm in a total shock, not understanding what I'm doing here, not understanding my peers, my family, am I adopted, where do I come from? An intense feeling of homesick, but not knowing what home is.
Well, it's in the stars, because it's walking souls just they'll come from a particular star system to bring specific qualities for the ascension process on Earth. And normally you come to Earth 48 to 72 times, but you might have only come a few times. You've come a few times early to get acclimated, but you don't come the full amount of time for the school of Earth like the majority of souls do, because there's no need, because you're here to bring specific gifts, which is why you feel so like a fish out of water, completely different to everyone else, because you're just playing the role of being human, a human body. But actually, you actually don't need to incarnate for your own growth. We incarnate to serve the greater good of raising the frequency of humanity as a whole.
But the whole process of getting through these traumas, though, that was like a sneaky move.
It's part of the training.
Right.
Okay? So everything emotionally in our bodies as walk-ins is only there to train us. It's not meant to punish us. It can feel like that. especially when you're younger and we don't know what's going on. But
Yeah.
the whole point is to train our personality, which is going to evolve quite differently compared to the first soul being on board. So it builds our skills. So all our karmic patterns, all the hard stuff we face, if we turn into it and transmute it layer by layer, that becomes our positive gift of service and our Walken's mission. Okay. So that's the most important thing. The gift is in the issues unresolved in the personality, and everything will be used by the Walken soul
Right.
as
And
part of the service.
it's so fascinating because I always described it like feeling like there's the football game going on, which is the world.
Yeah.
And I'm always on the sideline
Yeah.
looking at what's going on, but I do not feel like I belong there, nor do I participate. So that was really difficult. And at the same time, it's as a child, it feels like you think with an adult mind, but you know you cannot say these things, but you see everything that's going on. You see how people have masks on. You see how they do not say what they think. And that's only since a few years that I know, because I always fell asleep talking, saying things, and it sounded like gibberish. But now I understand it was actually some sort of a light language, and
Yeah.
I did that for hours before falling asleep, which drove my brothers nuts. And they always said, "Shut up." But I just couldn't stop until I fell asleep. And I never understood that until actually in the recent past 2 years, I learned, what if that was light language I was doing?
It
Because
probably was. It probably was. As a Walken soul, we're here to visit Earth and to maintain our level of consciousness and to clear the body of low frequency programs so more of our high consciousness can embody. And then that presence of high consciousness, this is for all light workers, 2 or 3% of the population are light workers. Walkens just happen to be, we're no better or worse than anyone else, but we just happen to have had more experience, so we can carry a higher frequency. And that higher frequency transmutes the negativity of the group of the consensus, the group consciousness on Earth, and raises its frequency. So you're always gonna feel like a visitor as a Walken, and you're visiting to infuse higher consciousness, knowledge. It's here to propagate out to the world to create change. But we can never be of this world. We can be in the world, but never of it.
that feeling, but
you're never going to fit in, because and there's no point, because that's not the job. The job is to stay in the high level of frequency, not drop your frequency to try and be like fit in. But if you sacrifice your frequency, it's going to feel really bad emotionally. But to maintain a high level of frequency and consciousness, to pull everyone else up gradually through your just transmission, just your presence, to transmute all the negativity in the world, and then everything else eventually rises in consciousness. That's what the purpose of the 2 to 3% of light because on Earth is for, to raise everyone's consciousness. It's the reason we haven't nuked ourselves in the 80s, because there's enough light workers are here to transmute the collective negativity of the unconsciousness of 98% of the population, who decided their job was to go to sleep, see if they can wake up. And we're in the middle of a great awakening right now.
yeah.
Past couple of years.
But you're saying something here that actually makes me sort of emotional, which is the constant effort to try and the feeling of belonging, forcing myself to belong, forcing myself to well, to be normal, to be what I see other people do, is like, they walk around on this planet like it's part of them. I don't feel that. And so when you said, it's not your job to do that, I'm kind of relieved, because I figured always that's exactly what I need to do in order to feel better.
Yeah, our job as light workers and Walkens is to be our authentic self and to share our gifts as best we can depending how far we've got through transmuting what's in the ego personality, and to create change. We are the cause that affects change. We're not here to be affected by the reality. Okay, it's about following your own path and what feels right. It's called following the spiritual signature, what opens your heart the most, and delivering whatever the soul wants to do in terms of its gift to the world. That's our job.
Wow. So what is it with the urge to being honest? Because that really got me in a lot of trouble, and I just cannot be something I'm not, or put, or even use words that are not authentic to me. And when I was younger, I always somehow figured, why aren't we telepathic? And so I thought, because if we are telepathic, everybody can also read each other's minds. And from that moment, I decided that I will always speak whatever is in my mind. So there is no filter, which obviously in the first 30 years got me in a lot of trouble, because I needed to balance out between not being rude, because it's not personal, is it? Because everybody has thoughts. So why should I mask that with something that is not real? And I actually still have problems with it, but I kind of learn now slowly. But what is that?
Well, Hawkins, we come from the fifth or higher dimensional higher, where there's only pure truth. There is no falsehood. Like there isn't a polarized good and evil conscious reality like this. I remember I used to speak the truth all the time as a walker, and I got myself in a lot of trouble. And I used to think, look at people and say, why are they not telling the truth? Why are they lying all the time? It's because of the level of consciousness. I mean, they couldn't even discern what the truth was, let alone express it a lot of the time in the situations they're in. But the way you're built in your soul contract is about, which is the Hebrew numerology we do, is basically to speak the truth no matter what, because it's about overcoming past life persecution for speaking the truth. But the actual learning really is to only share enough of the truth that someone can handle at their level of consciousness, because it doesn't serve to tell the whole truth, simply because they won't hear it. They'll basically shut down probably or attack you. So it's about sharing enough truth that they can handle, and when they're ready for the next bit, give them another piece of it, because then they will grow. And the whole point is to grow, even though our personality urge is to speak the truth no matter what. But it actually doesn't help them if there's too much truth.
Well, yeah, but you don't know that because you're still figuring out what's going on, and you still come here with amnesia. And so I at a certain point I was in a psychiatric clinic, and I had assertive therapy. No, what's it called? Yeah, assertive therapy. Everybody in that therapy was there because they never dared to say no, or they always say yes. And I was the complete opposite. I was too honest, too direct. And so I needed to learn that when it was rude, but I couldn't figure out why something was rude, because honesty per definition to me was not rude. And so oh my god, that brought me in so many troubles, and obviously bullied a lot, and I didn't make many friends over the years. And now I'm kind of this is why I started isolating as well. And so then, and now since a year, 2 years actually, since I started my YouTube, I came back in the world having contact with people. And now it's interesting because there's this great awakening. I finally stopped finding people that are okay with me saying the truth and saying what I think, no matter, what, because you find like-minded people, you find your tribe. And so it's only been 2 years now that I got back in society, sort of. But yeah, there's so many things still that it's like I feel like an infant, because I also pulled myself out of that whole society. in order to, well, I would say protect myself and work on myself. And so I'm wondering, obviously for you, it was really early on and you went through that path and searching and then you learned about it. Um, so is it also in a soul contract that you are sometimes meant to find these answers so much later in life?
Um, well, a soul contract, which is basically looking at the set of vibrations in your name and analyzing them on the Star of David. I'll show you. I'll put up yours now. You can do that.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So,
I'll just do
um,
that. Let's do
yeah.
that.
So that's what the book is about as well,
Yeah.
right?
So let's find it. So I'm just going to adjust it on another screen here. Right. I'll bring it over and
Because also everybody's experience is different, and and so, but I do know so many people that felt like they did not belong here, and so would that mean that many people are walk-ins?
not necessarily walk-ins, but at least light workers running at a high level of consciousness with more experience. So I'm just going to adjust the video so we can see them more clearly here. So just to explain to people for the first time what we're doing here.
Yes.
So what we've done here is that we've taken Patricia's name, which is pronounced in Dutch, and we've converted it into the equivalent written English to match the Dutch sounds. And then what we've done is that we have software here on soulcontractreader.com, if you want to play with it yourself, basically finds the equivalent Hebrew sounds, then it extracts the Hebrew numbers which are inherent within those sounds. These 22 ancient Hebrew letters we use here. It's channeled from the soul of Moses. It came through Frank Alper, I mentioned at the beginning, in the 80s. And then we decode it on the Star of David. So you can use this
Why?
software.
Why is that?
The Star of David is a gateway of consciousness for the soul's frequencies. And your soul chose these frequencies to create, through the law of attraction, the current life you have. Well, for the first soul, but you as a second soul, the walker, knew this was going to happen, and you agreed to this as well. And by analyzing these numbers, these frequencies on the Star of David, we can actually decode why you're here, what the mission is.
Okay.
And on the Star of David, we have a downward pointing triangle, which represents the physical side of life, the creation of the physical personality, conditioned responses, relationships, careers, getting out in the world. And between the ages of 35 and 42, the spiritual triangle becomes more predominant, even though it was already running. And that's about bringing the spiritual mission online. It basically, the soul's hoping this will be a good fit with the physical triangle, and that will ground its energies in the world.
Okay, wait. So to get this clear, so the purpose of that soul integration means you integrate both of these triangles so they match.
No. It forms the physical and the spiritual parts of our expression.
Okay.
You have to first get the physical vehicle up and running, and how you interact with the world, form your personality, because the personality, Patricia Donabel Var, is a brand new personality expression of the first soul, and now the second soul, the walking soul. You have to get that up and running first, because you're brand new. Even though the soul is eternal, the personality is only one. There's a brand new personality each lifetime. And then when enough of that's done, between 35 and 42 or earlier, sometimes later, the spiritual triangle, which is running anyway, becomes more activated. So the mission comes online. That's where we have the midlife crisis, dark night of the soul, initiation of fire, or an awakening happens. So the emphasis shifts from the physical to the spiritual triangle.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
And in each triangle, we have 3 aspects. We have karma, talents, and goals. And the idea, karma is a set of unresolved issues, in this case, your case, the first soul put in place for you to overcome. Okay, in order to turn this negative expression of these energies, it's past life driven, into the positive energies. And the talents here, physical talents, help you overcome it if it's a good match. And then once these are activated, it helps you achieve the physical goals, what excites you, what gets you out of bed in the morning.
Sorry, say that last thing again.
So the physical goals is what drives us forward. It's what excites us about life. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and that as the physical talents, which are latent, get stronger through working through the karma, they then can flow into the physical goals. So the energy flows from karma, talents, to goals in the physical, and then it also flows from karma to talents to goals in the spiritual.
Okay.
And this karmic pattern is about very much opening to high consciousness, bringing down high consciousness into the body and embodying it and expressing it in the world. And if you consciously work on these 6 outer aspects here, what happens then is you start to manifest the soul destiny or life purpose or soul purpose here.
Right, which is a nice number, by the way, 99.
Yeah, well, it's not like the normal conventional numerology. This is about really much coming into power. You can't look at this in terms of conventional Pythagorean numerology. So if you guys are watching, you should let that go, because these are just numbered labels for Hebrew frequencies.
Okay.
And the main difference between this and conventional numerology is that numbers aren't allocated to the English alphabet. We use the Hebrew, 22 Hebrew letters from the Hebrew alphabet, and the numbers are inherent within it. So it's a completely different system.
Okay, yeah.
You cannot reconcile the two because it's coming from a different place. And the 22 sounds of God we use here, which create Hebrew, are 22 sounds that come out of the process of Mother, Father, God creating this universe. So it's at a very high level of consciousness.
Wow.
So to find out what these are, we actually take these numbers here, we allocate them in a clockwise expanding spiral, going around the Star of David. Okay. And then what we do is we add them up. Say the total here is 21. And we have a 21, so we get 2 plus 1 equals 3. So we have a negative expression of the spiritual karma of a 21 and a 3, plus every blend in between. Okay. There's a range of karmic experience to have here. Whereas here in physical karma, the total is 41. 4 plus 1 is 5, because we don't have an interpretation for 41. We have interpretations from 1 to 22. 5 plus nothing is another 5. So we get to what's called a double number, 1 frequency rather than a range of frequencies. Work out all these other guides accordingly. Then we take the physical numbers, place them on the top half of the table. Spiritual numbers on the bottom half. Okay.
Right.
And then we add up the totals to give the 20. You get I can't see the number.
72.
72. 7 plus 2 is 9. 2 plus 7 is 9. So that's the soul destiny. That's in the middle. Okay.
Right.
And so these channel symbols carry specific meaning. Frank channel the symbols and the meanings of these. So what I was talking about earlier with the 5s is wanting to speak the truth no matter what, because of persecution in a past lives, speaking the truth. Probably some sort of witch, medicine woman, or shaman.
Yes.
And you've got 2 of them, which means you've got a dominant vibration is 4 or more of the same number.
In fact, I went through that a few times.
You would have. Yeah, a lot of stake burning and horrible things like that.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's where the 5 comes from. So your walk-in soul, sounds like you had one, its job is to work through this chart, all of the aspects, bring the mission online. Okay.
So then where do you see that? That you can see that in the chart as well, whether on the walk-in?
No, you can't see it in chart, but most walk-ins have a Chiron in their chart in a very auspicious place. That's very common. That's how you can tell. So in astrologer, if you see Chiron in the chart, yeah, that often indicates a walk-in. If it's in a very auspicious place in your chart. Okay, so the chart
Okay.
itself won't indicate it's a walk-in
Right, right.
at all. So the gift that you're here to come into is to learn to be a pioneer. This is a very psychic, spiritual energy. This is why it's hard for you being here, because you're very hypersensitive. The gift here is to overcome a past life persecution for speaking the truth, and then to speak the truth, cutting edge truth, and get that out to the world. So you're really here to, on the bell curve, so this is a normal distribution of humanity. You're here to address people, what we call early adopters, people who really want to wake up spiritually because they want to hear this truth. Everyone from here backwards is not ready to hear that. So there's a small niche of people who are very conscious. Okay, you're starting to find them that you need to connect with to deliver the truth here. And this talent indicates it's all about being a communicator teacher when you're on YouTube. 7 here is about networking. So this is definitely about social media and about networking with like-minded people, just what you're talking about before.
This is so ironic, since I've been out of society for 27 years.
Yeah, well, this is all about coming out of isolation. This one goes into isolation because the 7 here indicates a broken heart. And so the wounded inner child feels bad and scared of being rejected again. So it puts the facade out and goes into isolation, hiding. So this is about actually having to get out there and engage with society, because the mission's not going to happen if you give in to what the ego wants to do.
Wow. So I mean, last year both my cats died, and so that made me decide that I can do something, not necessarily dare, but I decided that I need to go abroad, and it was very likely I was not successful doing that, only to last week discover that in July I moved to Mexico. So, and I'm so scared, but somehow I know I need to do it.
Well, that's the soul telling you. You follow the spiritual signature, follow what the feeling is in the body, what you need to do. And the soul's going to be much stronger than a non-walking. If you follow that, what opens your heart the most, which is this one here, learn to heal the wounded heart, open the heart, the mission will flow and happen. Okay.
So, sorry, can I just ask then, because at the moment fear is bigger than the excitement for it, but
then you need to clear the fear. Fear
right.
is just the ego, it's just purely from the ego. Okay, because it's programmed to threaten. It wants to keep us the same old way, and to stay safe, but actually that leads to a pretty miserable sort of life.
Yes.
So overcoming the fear and following the spiritual signature flow, what opens the heart in each moment, because
Right.
you're really here to, the 21's the divine mother energy. You're really here to learn to overcome great hardship and endurance, develop endurance as a result, to learn to do things the easy way, and have that endurance used in the world to help others, really. That's what that's about. To create networks of people, become worthy, 3, to teach, communicate. You're communicating now. Remove this plug of unworthiness out of this internal canal, because there's deep soul knowledge to bring out to the world. So your walk-in came into this body because this is designed to be a teacher, a pioneering teacher of cutting edge knowledge with an open heart. And the talents here is the divine feminine aspect of God. This is about really unconditionally loving everyone who comes to you and sharing that with the world. So this is very much a communication, unconditionally loving, empowering. 9's about the dragon energy coming to power. And the proper use of power. So it's very powerful, very loving, very pioneering, very heart open. That's what this chart's about. So that's the mission, really. But you've got to overcome all the stuff in the personality, which you inherited from the first soul, in order to be able to do that. But as you do that, that will give you your gifts. And the gifts will be to speak the truth in a grounded way, learn to do it the easy way, be worthy to be seen in the world, and to teach great spiritual wisdom, and because you love people and share that love, accept everyone for who they are, open the heart and network, and come into your own empowerment, but also to empower others. That's the mission of the walk-in. Because it takes over the soul, takes over the soul contract and the personality of the first soul, and it's going to use everything here to carry the mission out.
So you said that was like a small niche of people to teach.
Yeah. And this is the 5, because you're a pioneer. You're in a pioneering personality. So it's these guys over here. There's plenty of other people there. There's tons of people there. Just got to find them.
But so then, what would it be about?
Well, it's you through the process, as I said earlier, the process of clearing the body, which is the first priority for the walk-in. Don't bother looking for the mission until you've cleared enough the body, because you're never going to find out what it is, because you're not ready to hear it.
Wait, but clearing out the body is like, what do you mean with that exactly?
That's clearing all the emotional issues you face, like the fear of going to Mexico, the anxiety you talked about before, the sense I need to isolate to feel safe. Okay, doing things the hard way, learning to do it the easy way. All the issues you face emotionally need to be cleared for the mission to be revealed. Until that time, it's not fully revealed because you're not ready. You're not emotionally clear enough in the body for the walk-in soul to manifest it. So you need to clear serenity ego structure to embody so it can express itself in the world. And that's the mission at the moment, is to clear the body.
So how do you clear these blocks if you really...
Emotional healing, we use a thing called divine healing. I'll send you all the links later. Or whatever healing works for you. You've got to decide. I make suggestions here, but you've got to decide what is resonant with you. But clearing the body should be the highest priority for a walk-in.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been busy really hard with that, especially in the past year. I went through so much healing, and I know there is still this little tiny bit of blockage that I wonder what it is. I wonder if it's what's coming up is fear to fail, like not the confidence to just push through.
Well, this is the 4. It's fear the flow won't come to you, fear things won't turn up. The 3 is a fear of failure because it feels unworthy to be loved. And therefore, because it's focused on that, it will just create more failure, more things not working.
Mm-hmm.
But the key to the whole chart for you is this 9. It's the most powerful number, is to overcome the resistance of the 9, this dragon energy, to unleashing its full power. Because the ego unconsciously is scared if it lets the dragon out, it will destroy you and those around you in the world. So overcoming the resistance to the full expression of your power is the key. And when you overcome that, then you feel worthy to be loved, because this would have manifested in childhood, okay, as a lot of emotional disempowerment, abuse, all sorts of stuff can happen.
Yes.
Yeah, but that was planned for the first soul, and your job is to overcome that. And as you come into your power, because you go from the negative expression of a number to the positive expression, as you overcome it, then the unworthiness resulted from that disempowerment will start to come out of the body, and you clear that, then you feel more success orientated, more trusting in the flow, and things start to happen. But you've got to get to the point where you've cleared enough stuff. It's not, you're not there yet.
No.
In the conversation, clear enough stuff so you can actually get the mission going. That's the most important goal. So the walk-in mission at the moment is to clear the body. Then the actual real mission will reveal itself based on all these themes once you've done that. But at the moment, it's just an idea, an understanding, but it's not the actual reality yet.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Does that help?
Yes, a lot, because it does clarify a lot. Obviously, I knew actually most of that. I mean, that it first is about clearing, and I've been really busy with that over the years, especially like it accelerated for me in the past year. And now this whole step of doing that, I have a feeling it will trigger that last block to unlock, so to speak, because obviously you need to go through something in order um, to resolve it, right? And other stuff, you just need to confront it because you already know what the blocks are. But
Yeah.
this last one, um, I feel that by pushing myself, doing what I'm going to do, like the moving and all that, it will push me out of my comfort zone like so many levels. But I know this is what will give that last push through that blockage. And I think the blockage is in that cell memory of um, failure. Because one thing is knowing that you can do it, the other thing is that your whole body reacts to the opposite. And so, in order for that to change, you need to first experience it and it's sort of being forced through it, I would say.
Yeah, behind the fear of failure is the disempowerment. So the core pattern is to actually work on what we call the shadow destroyer archetype of that soul destiny, that 9. Work on whatever trauma is still in your body from childhood, which created the disempowerment, which is an outward manifestation of the disempowerment. Then you just start with that, because the disempowering experience drives the fear of failure, not the other way around. So once you get the disempowering experience transmuted into positive power, then the layers of the fear of failure and unworthiness will start to come up in your consciousness and you can clear them. The starting point is always empowerment in this case, the way your chart is built.
Wow.
Because your job here is to empower others as a walk-in, but you've got to get into the body to clear it first. Okay.
Yeah. So then, like, I know that you actually changed your name because you felt that was needed, right?
Yeah, that was helped to manifest this 2006 that happened. So I've had it for 16 years, but that changed my life radically. Because I put a new set of frequencies into my old chart, which was very disempowering, to empower me. And that really helped. But plus enormous amount of healing, self-healing work.
But did you know that you needed to change that name? Did you always feel that somehow that name wasn't comfortable with you, or
It came out of the soul contract reading work, but there was an urge a few years before that. My guidance team said, okay, it's time to change your name. You can just look for a new one. I just knew that. I knew it was critical to manifest the next phase of the mission. And I changed that name in 2006. Then life did change a lot. And then it got to the point of the team said, okay, it's time to write the book on soul contract. So I got to meet all the right people, got lots of help. It all happened very quickly and became a bestseller on Amazon. Gaia came calling, wanted to make some shows about it. We did 5 shows in the end. I think four had been premiered already. But when I got that right name, everything, all the doors opened. Everything just sort of took time, but it gradually sped up. All these doors opened and opportunities came to spread the walk-ins work. But because I'd done enough work, at the time of the name change, I also learned divine healing. And that's how I use that every day to clear my personality, everything I've been talking to you about. So I knew if I didn't do that, I wasn't going to get anywhere. So I would almost
okay?
religiously,
So
every day I work on myself.
right. So you didn't change the name until you got through that healing.
No, the major healing started at the same time as the name changed, because divine healing was only first launched in 2006, about the same time as the name change. So the
Oh wow.
two are running in parallel. The use of a optimal name, which was designed to clear all my karmic patterns and help me work through my goals and bring my talents online. That basically, in parallel with doing a lot of divine healing, got me to where I am today. So going from being barely making a living as an alternative therapist to having a global teaching business now.
So then what was it for you that you decided to go ahead with it?
The word David came, my middle name came in two letters from the same client within 2 weeks, because I always had a feeling it was going to be a Hebrew name, and it's about, I was trying very complex Hebrew names, but this was the simplest one. and it worked. It was good. It worked.
Wow, that's so fascinating. And so, so you wrote this book, and you know you do that work. What else do you do with people that are walk-ins, and how do you, you know, help them become more knowledgeable about it?
Yeah. Well, the first thing we do is we do an evaluation. I've got yours here on the right. We ask a lot of questions about whether to determine whether you are a walk-in. And from what you've told me already, I think you are, because you've got all the classic symptoms of it. Okay. But there are many ways to arrive on Earth. We do an evaluation, and then we work out. There's a body work called light body integration, which I mentioned earlier, where we remove the programs, beings, and structures which create the sense of being separate from God. But there's specific protocols within that to help integrate the walk-in soul into the body. That's the key to the whole thing. If your walk-in soul's not in the body, then the mission is never going to happen.
Wow.
And then the majority of walk-ins fail. The mission doesn't happen unless they're very organized and have a ground crew who knows how to integrate them. And then we
That's
do,
that feeling of not feeling grounded, right?
yeah, that's where that is. You have to be in the body and grounded for it to work. Because if you're not in the body, you can't affect the reality with the soul energy.
Yeah.
Then that's about integrating the soul. And the other part of it is the divine healing we use to actually clear the body, the first soul's karma, take out the low frequency stuff, emotional programs, as I said. That means higher frequency soul can come in, and then the mission starts to happen. So these two parallel tracks: soul integration, the light body work, and then emotional integration to clear the body. So you've got to have the two running in parallel for that to actually occur. And it's ongoing emotional work is required, because a walk-in doesn't come in all one go. It comes in layers, one component after another, and that they are usually high frequency components. So then the body has to be cleared of whatever is in the way of that embodying. That's why we go back to the divine healing. So it's a continuous integration process. But it applies to all light workers and anyone else rising in consciousness. It's infuse more higher consciousness, clear the body, infuse and ground more higher consciousness, because the mission starts to happen through the expression of higher consciousness into the matrix. And the more you have in the body, the more powerful the manifestation is, because the matrix will rearrange around whatever programming you're putting through you. And if you're very clear emotionally, things will happen quite quickly. But walk-ins have a lot more raw soul power than the average soul, even the average light worker. And they can, if they really want something to happen, they'll literally manifest it out of thin air almost, because from the sheer will and power of the soul.
Right. Wow.
There's quite a lot to it. I could run through some of the sort of symptoms for the guys watching and explain why we have them. Run through some of yours there, if you like.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes.
So often walk-ins have personality changes. Not always. You said you didn't. So, but the personality change simply normally that means that there's a new emotional body on board, therefore a new personality. Okay. And it sounds like yours might have happened when you were very young.
Yeah. So I kept.
So you probably don't remember, or no one knows. And after a while, the new you becomes normal. So it doesn't mean you didn't have one.
Yes.
If you had it as an adult, you certainly notice it.
Because I did ask my mom, and I said, what was I like before I was 7? And she said, well, you had friends and this and that. And I could not imagine any of it. Everything, nothing.
Well, in that case, there was a significant change of personality. If you didn't have so many friends afterwards, that's a significant change, because of the higher frequency being, you would have lost all the emotional connections with those people, because the emotional body left, or the first soul.
Well, plus I moved houses a lot, so it happened actually right after I moved. So
okay, well that's part of it as well.
Yeah.
So you can have personality changes. You said yes to having depression and grief.
Oh God.
That comes because the body consciousness, which a deviant consciousness we have in the body that runs all the systems, it had a contract with the first soul, and the first soul leaves, just like physically dying, and they are grieving the first soul. So when the second soul comes in, they're still grieving the first one. That's why you can have that grief, because they look at the second soul saying, well, who are you? We didn't do the deal with you. Our real soul is left. So and that's not part of the plan normally on Earth. You don't normally, the body's not normally retained after the soul leaves. It actually physically dies. Okay. So you get depression.
Not anymore, but yeah, I had it
Yeah.
badly.
Yeah. So you can have schizophrenia like symptoms, and that can come because you can have residual personality imprint from the first soul, but then new personality, the second soul comes in. So you can be flickering between one and the other. Okay. Okay. But in your cases, you said being crazy, or yeah, feeling you're crazy is because you can't reconcile the two because they're quite different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Feeling homesick and alien, we talked about that, is because you come from somewhere else.
Actually, that's interesting because I don't know exactly what schizophrenia is in itself, but the feeling that I constantly didn't know what to adapt to as a personality.
Well, the malleable personality happens because you're trying, as a walk-in souls try on different ways of being in the world to find out what they
Yes.
like. So
Yeah.
that's what's going on for you, because it's like a test drive, because you don't know what it's going to be like till you're actually in the body,
Yeah.
because you don't know how the personality is going to turn out from the life of the first soul until you actually get into it. You actually embody into the body, physical body.
Well, yeah, which is also the constant question, like, who am I? Who am I? I literally was frustrated not
Well,
figuring it.
yeah,
Yeah.
because you've lost the connection to higher consciousness by coming in the body to a degree, and you're trying to reconcile this physical vehicle in with the higher consciousness that you come from. Okay, so and you're trying to raise the frequency of the body and merge the two. That's the key, and because weren't fully merged when you were younger, that's why you have this conflict.
I have another question actually for you.
Go on.
Yeah, I mean, I never, ever, ever, ever said this so loud, but it's like when you look in the mirror, I dissociate because it's like I'm not looking at me.
Well, you're
And
looking at the physical body of the first soul, which you're probably in the middle of changing. So it's hard to identify or relate to.
I still have that. And I always think I'm not normal. I cannot. This is not normal. Because people say, look in the mirror, talk to yourself. It's like two different things.
Well, yeah, well, it'll be like that because you're still you're still in the process of integration. You see.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Go on.
So allergies and autoimmune diseases can come. You don't have any, but they can come because the body consciousness, the deviant consciousness, is rejecting the second soul, which means the body can start to fight itself.
Right.
There can be a feeling of there's something special to do, but you can't remember what it is. And the reason for that, as we said earlier, is because you haven't cleared enough of the body yet to allow for the real mission to come through. Can have body pains and joint pains. You're okay with that, but that comes from autoimmune issues where the body consciousness is fighting the soul. Exhaustion, fatigue that are out of proportion to your level of exertion. That comes because when the walking soul comes in, there's an opening in the fields, in the energy fields, and you can be leaking energy, which is why you get exhausted. So it requires the fields to be rebuilt, which can be done with divine healing. They need to be sealed up. Okay.
So last year when I discovered about autism, and so it was actually the first time I was out in a long time again, outside, far from my house. And for the first time, I decided to monitor what is actually happening because I used to get these massive panic attacks out of the blue. And so I sat there and I was like, what is actually happening while I sit here? And as I did that, at that moment, the whole world came at me. Sounds, movements, noises, feelings, every sense. And at that moment, I already felt the panic attack coming. And that's when I knew this is why I never knew why I got a panic attack, because I wasn't feeling that. It just felt like it would explode into a panic attack. But I never was aware what was actually happening. And now I understood what was happening is that I was protecting myself not to feel all these senses. Therefore, I could not feel the panic attack coming. But now, right now, I was in the middle of it while it was building. And all of a sudden, I knew for the first time, I felt every sense coming onto me, like being attacked. And that's when I realized for the first time, that's why I went out of society, because I couldn't cope that anymore. I didn't know that though. I had no reason why I withdrew from the world.
I didn't
And
feel safe. And the panic attack come from the childhood trauma of those nines, whatever disempowering, abusive experience you had. And the trauma of that is stored in the central nervous system and the vagus nerve, which is the nerve that connects all your organs and viscera. Okay. And so it's going to try and find a way out. It'll trying to find a way out in a way that is safe for the physical body. So this is where the panic attacks come from. It's trauma trapped in the body that can't come out. And in this case, because you don't remember what happened prior to 7, it's from things which you don't remember. That's what causes the panic attack. Because as far as the body's concerned, the trauma is happening right now. It doesn't have a sense of time. It's still happening until you release the layers of it. So specialized trauma therapy is what would be required here to release it in a safe way.
wow.
Okay, that's what's actually going on here. But overcoming the trauma is the key to coming into your own power. But you've got to get all the trauma out as a part of that process. So therefore, wouldn't have felt safe at the moment the body was traumatized by whatever event happened. So running away to isolation, which is the 7s in your chart, I've got to be safe, so I've got to isolate. That's what drives it. So the cause to come into your own power and clear the trauma first, then all this sort of stuff will go away.
So then how do you do that if you don't know?
You need specialized trauma therapy, really, that sort of thing. Things like somatic experiencing, EMDR.
I did EMDR.
Yeah, I'd go back and do some more.
Yeah, because they actually stopped at a crucial point where I still needed to go through something. And it was only a few years ago that all of a sudden I found that I was sitting in a certain position, and all of a sudden I found myself as a child in the exact same position in a place that I couldn't remember, but right there, I literally was there at that moment. And that's when I knew what may have happened. And that scared the shit out of me. But the EMDR was a good one for certain trauma that
that would be the highest priority therapeutically, because until the trauma is out and you come back into your power, the mission won't happen.
Right.
It'll just be thinking about it and dreaming about it, but it actually won't happen. So that's the key. That and emotional healing. Okay. Where else? Other things about being a walker are being spat and ungrounded simply because it takes time to come in the body. It can crash into the walls because we're not being in the body. You said not being fitting into the wall. We talked about that. It's just simply because of the frequency difference. Memory loss because of the change of mental body. Wanting to wear hats, you said yes, that can be to protect the crown chakra because it's too open from the walk, and it opens enormously when we have that. There can be, we talked about severe illnesses, accidents, concussions as a trigger. You didn't have that. I think it was just probably when you were younger. You didn't need it in that case to trigger the walk-in. Epileptic like seizures, that can be the brain resetting itself because the walk-in will change the brain function.
Yeah. I had one seizure in my life. That was
when
I was a teenager.
Yeah. And walk-ins can feel everyone's asleep, doing strange stuff. It's simply because they're operating from a lower level of consciousness, not a better one, just where they are. They can't help themselves. A feeling of newness and wonder about the world, because as more components come in, they might have never been in a body before, and they'll see the world with fresh eyes. It can look like it's like it's been raining in the morning and it's glistening in the sun. Everything's very luminescent because the new part of you seeing that for the first time. unable to express what you really feel and think in English or Dutch. That can happen because most languages on earth are very polarized, good and evil consciousness, whereas when you come from the higher dimensions, we speak in unity, and it's not possible to do that, say, in English or Dutch.
That's why I would always talk in circles and keep talking and keep talking. And then people would say, yeah, I got it now. I got it now. But I still felt that I didn't express what I need to express. So I kept doing that all the time, to annoyance of many people. But language in itself really frustrates me because you just cannot express the same.
You can't, it's very slow. So
Yeah.
A desire to speak comes from a sense that you can't convey what you really say. You just explained that. Feeling like, who are the strangers who think they are my family? Well, they are, because you don't have an emotional connection with them when you first arrive, because you'd had a complete change of emotional body. Wondering why people don't tell the truth, not really what they really mean, well, simply because they're unable to. Okay.
Yeah.
Strongest to tell the truth no matter what. That's your fight in your subcontract, but also a walk-in. We always want to tell the truth. Appearing to be ruthless, rude, or cold to people, yes, because there's a ruthless pursuit of truth in consciousness, and so it's just the way walk-ins are built. Because in the high dimensions, that's all there is.
Right.
Clumsiness or poor coordination that comes from not being in the body properly, feeling like an alien. Well, you are to a degree, different frequency altogether.
Yeah.
Wondering what all the aliens here are doing. Well, that's because they're like almost like a different species. Lack of emotional attachment to the past. Yeah, that's simply because the new emotional body comes in and you've got to rebuild relationships and create new ones. It's difficulty finding the right food because the walk in these very high frequency food, it's hard to find on Earth. It's usually green organic stuff like blue-green algae and things like that initially.
Yes.
Okay.
Fresh. For me, it's more watery, like melon, mango, stuff like that.
Yeah, you got to go while what feels right, because the body needs high frequency stuff. And the feeling to need to change the name is the name optimization comes because the walker needs its own identity to match the mission. That's why it's a strong urge to change the name. Hypersensitivity to EMFs, that comes because it's a much more refined soul because of its experience, much more high frequency soul. Feeling androgynous is because we're actually are androgynous at the soul level, but we usually choose a dominant gender when we're in a body. But in your case, you said you're very you're very feminine, but your mind is masculine. So you're probably playing with that a bit, trying to work out where you stand.
Yes, very confused as well, because I would switch a lot, but I understood the masculine way of thinking so much better. But at the same time, I look very, that's another thing, by the way, because whatever I look like doesn't match with what I'm inside. And so very often people would even tell me, and they would say, you are so not what you like, oh, you're attractive and this and that, and therefore you are this and this. But it didn't match at all with what I looked like. And that was another frustration, because people have expectations when you look a certain way, apparently. That is something I encountered a lot.
Yeah. Well, it could be your soul has spent a lot of time in masculine bodies, but now in a feminine body.
Yes.
So there's a bit of a mismatch because we're predominantly in one usually. Last symptom is a disparity between what you know to be the truth and your external reality. And you said, yes, it's confusion. It's because you're connected to the higher consciousness truth of the walk-in, but you haven't converted it into its grounded expression through the personality in the body. But so when your actual external reality matches the internal reality, that means you're fully integrated. So this is indicating that the emotional and energetic integration of the soul is the key to this next phase of the mission, to actually manifest it, to overcome all the things we've talked about in the soul contract, to become that empowering communicator teacher. I mean, if you started a YouTube channel, so you're showing yourself, but it's about making yourself financially viable, coming to empowerment, coming to worthiness, and letting the truth out in a manageable way as you deliver your gift of service. Getting that deep body of resonant knowledge into you out to the world.
Yeah, that's interesting because at the moment I'm like, oh, I don't want to stream because I feel so useless. It's like I don't have anything to bring unless I have a good guest and all that. But at the same time, I'm like, no, 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 there's more. And I just can't, it's out of my reach, just there. And very frustrating.
Well, the key in integrating the soul, this is for anyone who's on the spiritual path, is to work with whatever is strongest emotionally in the moment, because that's what the soul wants you to work on. With those
Right,
fires in your contract, there's going to be a lot of vision of what you'd like to potentially like to do, but you've got to work with emotionally what's in front of you, because you work on that one, you clear a layer, you integrate a bit more into the body, clear the next one. So it's working with what is in the moment.
right, right, right.
Don't go looking for something off in the distance, because it's not going to work, because the thing that's bugging you at the most at the moment is the thing to work on.
That's interesting you say that because it's just like speaking, if it's not your truth, and the same the way you express, if it's not truth, it becomes really frustrating. And you know, you cannot do something against your will. Many people, though, I see that they are really capable of doing, like, yeah, I have to do it because, you know, I need to make money and this and that. It's not like I don't want to put the effort in, but the effort is so extremely much. I'm completely unhappy if I have to force myself into doing something that I don't want to do. Um, you know, so that is something I see as an equivalent as speaking your truth, also expressing your truth is very important.
Well, Watkins really usually come with a lot of integrity and don't like doing things that aren't in integrity for them in that moment. So it's about, definitely the key is definitely to clear the body, because emotionally, because once you've done that, the power of the soul will start to manifest the mission much more. And then you'll be more in alignment. So those moments will be less and less of having to do things you don't want to do. All that will happen is you'll be manifesting things you do want to do and you love doing. And to get on with the mission, and that will also be in alignment with actually being able to be financially viable in this reality to carry that mission out.
Right,
That's the key thing I'd leave you with, is work in the moment with whatever's there.
right.
That's the key to the whole thing, and then the mission will unfold gradually.
Wow. I mean, this was such great information. And, you know, I recommend everybody that actually feels like I did, you know, to definitely, you know, get your book, first of all, but also I know that you have workshops and you have your own YouTube channel where you talk a lot about the soul integration as well, which is very interesting for people to watch. But and your interviews that you did in order to understand more about it. And I do believe there is so many more people walking around frustrated, just the way that I did for so long, and you know, still having those last steps to take. But you know, if somebody's not aware of this, of being a walk-in, then you know, it can be really rough figuring it out what's going
Yeah,
on.
yeah. What I'll do is I'll send you a list of the key links for the website. But the website is called Center with an ER for FOR consciousascension.net.
Yes.
And you'll find, if you look on the left hand side, you see walk-ins on there. And it has little questionnaire, which is what we went through just now. And if you want interested in the book to find out who you are and why you're here, the link is yoursoulcontractdecoded.com.
Right.
That tells you about the book and where to get it. And if you want to generate your chart, the software we were using is called soulcontractreader.com. You can get 4 free charts with that. So with the book, and the free software. You can find out exactly what your mission is. And if you are a walk-in or resonate with what we're saying, I can put you in touch with one of my practitioners who can do a full evaluation. It's a little bit like the discussion we had today, but based on the questionnaire, then they can work out how to integrate the soul so you guys can get on with your mission.
Right.
And, if you look on the left of the website, the light body integration work is just named on the left as well as if you look under healing services, you can find divine healing sessions if you want to know about those.
Right.
But I'll email you all the links so you can put
I'll
them
put them all in the description.
on the YouTube description. I'll get to that.
Well, in any case, thank you so much for being here. And I want to recommend the audience to definitely check out the links that I have below in the description. And thank you for being here and explaining everything, you know, how it works. I also will put some links of other interviews that you've done so people, you know, get to hear your story, because your story is really mind-blowing to me. And it's interesting. It's almost pitch black here, dark, and it's 1:30 p.m. in the afternoon. So it's really weird that I need actually a light, and it's really dark outside, which is really strange. But yeah, so that's why the lighting is like this. But you know, we don't let us take that away from the story and the talk that we had. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on the show, Patricia. It's been fun, and I hope it helps a few people get on with their missions.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye, everybody.